morning. My name is Steve Armitage, and I'm going to be presenting a discussion about D2L Brightspace quiz creation. Okay, so I'll just sort of briefly walk through what we're going to talk about today, and then we'll get right into it. So why would you want to be using the quizzing tool in D2L? Well, we're going to talk about some of the benefits very quickly. I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to construct quizzes effectively. We can discuss some of the challenges and drawbacks of quizzes, and then we'll have time for some discussion at the end. So the big advantage in my eyes about the D2L quizzing tool is immediate feedback for the students. So they write a quiz, and you can set it up so that it marks itself automatically, and they receive not only their grade, but any feedback that you want to program into the quiz. And this is an excellent learning tool for the students to help them improve student outcomes as they progress through the course. It can be used for assessment for, as, or of learning, and that depends on how you implement the quizzes. So I'll talk about a few different options for that. The D2L software also has excellent data tracking techniques, so you can easily keep track of your students' progress from the start of the course until the end of the course. And you'll see that setting up a quiz can be a lot of work initially, but if you're teaching the same course multiple times, you can reuse the quizzes every time. And if you've structured them in a smart way, then you'll be able to use those for the next 5 or 10 years. And so that can really reduce your workload over the long term. So I've been doing this for several years now, and certainly the first year that I did it, it was a lot of front-end loaded work. But now that I've been doing it for a number of years, I find that I'm able to assess my students more effectively and more quickly. So what we're mainly going to talk about today is how to construct a quiz. And so here are some general principles that I think are important. You really want to have your quiz planned out in advance. Okay, so you want to know how long the quiz is going to be. You want to know what type of assessment you're trying to achieve. Are you going to have the students work independently on this? Are you going to have them work in groups on this sort of assessment? And you want to know if it's an assessment for, of, or as learning. And you also should think about whether or not it's an opportunity for them to self-evaluate as well, and review the feedback carefully, and then improve their learning as a result of that. Okay. The next really important thing is that you build your quiz using the question library. So rather than creating all of your questions in a quiz itself, you want to make use of the question library so that you have access to those questions for future quizzes or assessments. This next one is something that I've sort of learned through trial by fire. You have to keep things organized. As soon as things get unorganized, you're going to find that any efficiencies that you were getting from creating an online quiz quickly go away. So you really want to have a clear structure in your mind for how you're going to organize your questions in your question library so that they can be accessed in the future. And you also want to use a variety of different question types. And there's a lot of different options, such as multiple choice, fill in the blanks, short answer, arithmetic questions. And each of them will have different uses depending on what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so this is the main thing that I'm going to discuss today, and then after that we'll talk about some of the challenges. Okay, so I'm going to pop out of this little presentation, and I'm going to jump into a course that I've set up. So this is just a demonstration, and right now I'm impersonating a student in the course. And so what I've done is from the home page, the student can access their quizzes by clicking on the quiz tab, and they've got a demo quiz here. So it's sitting here and it's ready for them to do. And so if they go here and they start the quiz, this is what it looks like for them. Okay, so the first question is a true or false question. when electrons are transferred between two atoms, a covalent bond is formed. True or false? And so in this case, I've actually set it up so that there's a hint. So they can view the hint for the first question, and you can include hints or not. That's something that you can control. So they might select their option, okay, and then move on. And so it automatically saves for them, and they can move on to the next question. So what proportion of the Canadian population lives within the interior plains region? So again, they're going to make their selection, whatever it might be. And so this is a multiple choice type question. This is a multi-select type question. So which of the following were Roman gods? They have to select all of the answers that are correct and not select any of the answers that are incorrect. So they might select, 3 answers there, and then you can actually change the way that this is scored depending on how you want to score it. So you can grade it based on how many correct answers they got, or the number of correct answers minus the number of wrong answers, and so on and so forth. So I'll quickly run over how to do that when I show you how to create a question like this. This is an example of a fill in the blank question. So a vector quantity has both magnitude and direction, while a scalar quantity has only magnitude. Here's a matching question. So we've got, so it says match each of the words with their definition. So we have some definitions on the left-hand side and a number of different words on the right-hand side. And they're just going to select from the drop-down list what the correct definitions are, okay? And I'm just making random selections here just to demonstrate to you how this is done. Okay. Here's an ordering type of question. So place these elements in order of increasing atomic number, with 1 being the lowest and 4 being the highest. Okay, so again, we want to select from the drop-down box. So hydrogen is going to be the smallest. The next, we might have carbon, oxygen, and then silicon. And then finally, the 2 shorter sides of a right triangle measure 12 and 13. What is the length of the hypotenuse? So this is actually a calculation type question. So they would have to maybe draw a diagram and work out the answer for themselves. And then once they've got that, they're going to type their answer in. And what I found is helpful is to specify the number of significant digits that they would want to include in their answer. So whatever their answer might be, whether it's something like 15.5, they're going to include their answer there. Okay, now once they've finished those questions, they would click submit quiz. Okay, are you sure that you want to submit your quiz? They would say yes. And then once they've done it, they get the immediate feedback. So this is what it looks like for them. So you can see that they got the first question right, okay? And they can view the feedback as well. So the overall feedback is something useful, something additional that they can learn about the topic. In this case, I included a little joke: a covalent bond yells at an ionic bond. Didn't anybody ever teach you to share? But I've also included specific feedback that, so because they got the answer right, it says that's right. And then it tells you a little bit. A covalent bond is formed when electrons are shared between 2 atoms, okay? And so I've programmed it so that it will give different feedback if they had scored that answer wrong, okay? So here's an example where they got the wrong answer. So if we view the feedback here, it says that's too high, okay? So they've picked an answer that's too high, and then it gives the relevant information about the interior plains region, okay? So this is what's going to help them to learn the concepts effectively, okay? And then again, they can view the feedback for lots of different questions and go along, okay? And so it automatically scores things for them. It's very quick feedback, and so it's a very effective learning tool. Okay, so once they're done there, they can see their overall grade, okay? And this one's actually set up so that they can attempt it an unlimited number of times. So on their first attempt, they got 2.99, and on their second one, they got 8.01 out of 16. And so if they want to go back to the quizzes and try again, they are welcome to do so. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll stop impersonating the student, and I'm going to jump into the quiz creation tool. So in order to create a quiz, what you want to do is you want to go to the quizzing tool here. And so this is the first point that I had, is that you don't want to simply create a new quiz right off the bat. What you want to be doing is you want to be working with your question library. So right here, we have the question library. And as I mentioned, you want to try to keep things organized. Okay, so here I have 3 different units: sample unit 1, sample unit 2, sample unit 3. And then within each unit, you might have a different bank of questions for assessment for learning quizzes versus a unit test or something like that. So if we go into the assessment for learning quizzes, what I like to do is I like to have like a little quiz for basically each lesson that I teach. And so in a single unit, I might have 5, 6, or 7 small AFL quizzes, and they're usually 3 or 4 or 5 questions, so very quick little quizzes. But then I have a bank of questions that I can reuse for a unit test, for example. So let's pop into sample quiz 1, and so this is where I actually created the different questions. Okay, and so this is what the list of questions look like. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly walk through how you would build one of each of these types of questions. Okay, so if you want to add a new question, what you're going to do is you're going to select new from here, and you're going to select the question type. And here are a lot of the different question types that I've mentioned already. So if we start with just a true or false question, okay, something simple like that. If you click on that and you pull this up, you can enter your question text here. Okay, so you might have a question like this. So atoms are most stable when their outer shells are full. Okay, and so then you want to select the correct answer. So that would be true. Okay, and then here you have options for adding feedback or a hint if you'd like to. Okay, so you can add whatever your hint might be. So put your hint there, and then you can also add feedback if you'd like to. So you can add overall feedback, and so check the periodic table. And you can also add specific feedback, whether they got the answer correct or not. So you might say that's right, or sorry, no. Or you can add more details like that. But this is the process for creating a true or false question and adding feedback like that. Okay, so then once you're done there, you have a few options. You can save it, or you can save it and create a new question, a new true or false question, or you can save it and create a copy. And I have found that if you're making a lot of questions of the same type, it can be useful to save it and create a copy. For now, we'll just save that one. There, we've added a true or false question to our quiz. It's right there. Now let's move on and add another question. Okay, so the one other element that I want to mention here is creating question pools. And so I'd like to demonstrate that for a multiple choice question. So you'll notice that in this list, I've got true or false, multi-select, fill in the blanks, matching questions and ordering. And this one's an arithmetic question. I don't have any multiple choice here, and that's because I've created a pool of questions to draw from for multiple choice. So here, if I look at this subfolder, there's already 3 multiple choice questions built in here, and I'm just going to demonstrate adding one more to this pool. And I have found that having 4 multiple choice questions to pull from for a pool of questions is a pretty decent amount. If you're going to have like 10 multiple choice questions on a test, and each question has 4 that it randomly selects from, then every student is going to have a different test to work with. And so that means that you can give an assessment and not necessarily have to have the students in isolation and worried about academic integrity. You could administer this sort of in an online environment, and it makes it challenging for the students to cheat off of each other because there's so much so many different questions that they're pulling from. Okay, so for a multiple choice question, quite straightforward. I'm not going to include feedback for this, just in the interest of time. So you might have something like this: the 4 geologic eras consist of Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic. Okay, which lasted the longest. Okay, and so then you're going to want to put in your options. So Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. And then you select the one that's the correct answer. Now for a multiple choice, I find it's usually a good idea to randomize the answer order. The only exception to this is if the answers already have a natural order to them. So let's say that it's a numerical answer and your answers are like 10, 11, 12, and 13. Well, you probably just have those left in the correct order. Otherwise, just because it already has a natural order to it. So it makes sense for the students to observe it that way. Okay, so you've created your question, you've written down your options, and you've included the correct option. Notice that it is possible to add additional answers. So this might be, you know, a red heron. Okay, you might include that. Let's spell red there. So you might include a test option like that. Okay, so there's multiple choice. And so now I have a pool of questions. I have 4 questions that I can draw from. And those will be useful for creating a test. Okay. Next, I'll just quickly look at a multi-select question. So let's build a multi-select question here. Okay, so similar to the Greek gods, which of the following were Greek goddesses? Okay. And so you might include a few options here: Hestia, so Aphrodite, Juno. Add a couple more options just to give people a good list: Minerva, Ceres. Okay, and then you want to select all the answers that are true. So Hestia, Leto, Aphrodite, and we want to make sure the answers are in a random order. Okay, and then this is how I was mentioning before, how you can specify the way that the question is scored. So I think it's reasonable for this question to be worth something like 3 points. So you would make the question overall worth 3 points. And then you, from the drop-down list, you can select how you might score it. So there's 6 options and a total of 3 points. So if they click 3 correct and they make sure not to click the 3 that are not correct, then you might give them 3 out of 3 by choosing this option, where each correct selection that they make is 0.5 points. Or you might allow them to say just the correct answers, and it limits the number of selections. So it says you can only make 3 choices, and they have to figure out how many of those, or they have to make the 3 correct choices, and each correct choice they make, they'll get 1 point for. You can also set it to give them a ½ point for each correct selection and subtract a ½ point for each incorrect selection. And so this is really personal preference here. I would encourage you to play around with those different options and see which one fits best for your type of course. Okay, so let's just go with correct answers for now. And if there are any questions, just include them in the chat box there or add them to the Padlet, and we'll discuss them at the end of the presentation. Okay, Now, there's a few others here that I'm not going to touch on. So like written responses and short answer questions and multi-short answer questions. And the reason I'm not going to touch on these is because you can't set these to grade themselves automatically. Just because of the nature of the question. So you're welcome to include these in a quiz, but that will take away the immediate feedback piece of the quiz. And so I wanted to emphasize that immediate feedback. So we're going to skip those types of questions. Okay, but we'll look at a question here. Okay, so if I want to do a fill in the blanks, depends how many blanks I have, how many points I want the question to be worth. So if I've got two blanks, I might want to make the question worth 2 points. Okay. You can include a description, but it's really not necessary. So you might start with, a physics type question. So energy is the ability to do blank. Okay. And then the correct answer to that would be work. Okay. And you want to set it likely to case insensitive unless you have some reason otherwise for not doing that. And if we're going to have 2 blanks, then we want each blank to be worth about half of the marks. So I would weight it as 50% here. Okay. And then I might have a second portion of my question. So total mechanical energy is always, and I need another blank. So if I don't have enough blanks, I can just scroll up here and add a blank like this. Add 1 blank. Okay, and total mechanical energy is always conserved. Okay. And so the weighting for that one as well would be 50%. If you want to check to see whether you're setting it up correctly and it's looking all right, you might preview it. Okay, so if I preview the question, it looks like this. Energy is the ability to do blank, and we can see that the answer is supposed to be work. And total mechanical energy is always blank, and we can see that the answer is okay. So this is how it will grade it as right or wrong. And so we can see, yes, we've set it up appropriately. Okay, so once you've got it set up correctly, you can save it. That's great. All done there. Okay, and let's move on to our next type of question, which would be a matching type of question. But you can also have matching questions. So again, if I want to, so normally for a matching question, I would probably include sort of 5 definitions and 5 matches, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to do a couple here. Okay, so let's make our first choice a definition for the word emulate. So we'll have emulate there. And then we'll write in the match for it. So emulate means to match or surpass. Okay, so that's our first match, and we can try another one, precarious. Okay, and you want the match for precarious to be the definition. So not securely held or in position. I'll just leave it like that. Okay. And so then you just want to include some brief instructions. So match each of the terms with their correct definition. Okay. And so then you can preview that as well. So looks like that. So I've got my definitions on, or I've got my words on the right, my terms on the right, and then my definitions on the left, and they can just select from a drop-down menu which ones are correct. And it's going to sort them randomly. So in this case, they happen to match up, but it will sort them randomly for you automatically. Okay, we've got that one done. We'll save that one as well. And just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip the ordering types of questions, but it's the same sort of thing. You just program in the question. The one that I'd really like to get to before my time runs out is an arithmetic question. Okay, so these are the ones that I love to use because what I can do is I can create a question and then program it in so that it will randomly generate values. And then all of a sudden I can create, I can give the same question over and over again and test the student's understanding of how to solve the problem, not their memorization of a specific answer. Okay, so let's do like a budgeting one. Okay, so let's say that Julie has the following expenses. Okay, her rent is, and so what I want to do is I want to have some random value for the rent. So I'm going to make a variable. I'm going to make the variable A. And so her rent is some dollar value per month. And so then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to create a variable called A. And we're going to give it some reasonable minimums and maximums. So for rent, you might have a minimum of, let's say, $600 a month, depending on where you live, and a maximum of, let's say, $1,500 a month. And you can also choose like how many decimal places to include. So, you know, in the case of rent, we're probably, you know, to the nearest dollar, so no decimal places there. And then we would want to think about a reasonable, you know, step from one random value to the next. So I don't want to put in this question that their rent is $672 a month. So maybe I'll say that it steps up by increments of 100. So that's going to give me a randomly generated variable, which could be 600, 700, 800, 900, etc. Okay, so we've got the rent. Okay, what other expenses might Julie have? So maybe she's got, let's say, groceries. Now the groceries, again, are going to be some amount. So I'm going to put curly braces around the variable like that. And the groceries are bought on a different frequency. So they have to work it out a different way. So the rent is a certain amount per month, where the groceries are a certain amount per week. Okay, and again, I'm going to need a variable for the groceries. So I'm going to use the variable B. And for groceries, I mean, who knows how much this person's spending, but maybe they're spending somewhere between $50 and $200 a month, something like that. And we're going to go in increments of, let's say, $10. Okay. So we have our variables, and you know, I would do more, but in the interest of time, I think 2 is sufficient. Okay, and then we want to include our question. So what are Julie's average monthly expenses? Okay, and then we want to specify like how we want them to answer it. So round your answer to the nearest dollar, let's say. Okay. And so now what we have to do is we have to work out the formula for this. Okay, so we know that it's $A per month and B dollars per week. So right here in the formula section, what we're going to do is we're going to put in, well, $A per month in curly braces. And then we want the amount per week, but we want to convert that to a dollar amount per month. So that's the weekly amount, B. Now, to convert it to a monthly amount, we're going to multiply by 52 weeks in a year and divide by 12 months in a year. And so we get a formula for that. Okay, so this is the calculation that the software will do to get the right answer. Now, the next line down is how precise the answer should be. So do we want 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places, etc.? We asked them to round to the nearest dollar, so we want 0 decimal places. We can preview the question by clicking on preview here. And so this is important because we want to check to make sure that we're doing it correctly. So Julie has the following monthly, the following expenses. So $1,300 a month for rent and $200 a week for groceries. So if I take the 200 and I multiply it by 52 and I divide it by 12 and I add on the 1,300, I'm going to get a total of $2,167. And so this is what they would have to enter in to get the correct answer. Okay, so that's all the types of questions. I just have, I'm just about out of time, so I'm just going to save that. I'm just going to very quickly show you how to actually create the quiz itself. So I have my question library. It's all done. I'm going to pop back to the quiz tab here. And I'm going to create a new quiz. Okay. And so in order to create the quiz, you're just going to give it a name, demo test. Let's call it demo test 1. You can select a category for it. Okay, you might want to add a new category, unit tests. Okay, and then you want to add questions to it. And so because we put all of our questions in the question library, we're going to want to import questions. So we import questions from the question library. If you've got it in a nice organized fashion, you can easily find your questions. We know that all of ours are located here. Okay, and so I'm going to select all of the questions that I want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to include a question pool as well. Okay, so there, I've included all the questions that I've typed in. Okay, and they all show up there. But I'm going to also include a question pool for the multiple choice questions. Okay, so my question pool is the multiple choice question pool. And what I want to do is I want to select it from that group of multiple choice questions. So once again, we need to have an organized file tree so we know where our questions are. Here's our 4 multiple choice questions. So we want to select those 4 questions. Okay, and we can see that there's 4 options to pick from. I might want to pick one of those questions at random. Okay, once I have that question picked at random, I can save it. I've added all of my questions to the test. So overall, it's worth 25 points. Okay, down at the bottom, you can select whether you want to allow hints or not. Okay. And then there's just a few other settings that you'd have to do to make it viable. So there's some restrictions. You want to make sure that it's not hidden from the users. You can select when it starts or when it ends. You can select how much time they're allowed to work on it. So you might enforce a time limit of 60 minutes. And then after the grace period is extended, you might allow them to keep working, but automatically score it as 0, or you might prevent them from making further changes. Okay. If you have students with IEPs, you can select on add users with special access, and you can adjust the recommended time for them. So that's a nice feature, and you can do multiple students at once, so it's not too laborious. Okay. Once you have the restrictions set, you want to look at your assessment. So here's the key. You really want to allow the attempt to be graded immediately. Okay. You want to add a new grade item. So I might call this demo unit test, and then a short name to show up in your grade book. So demo test 1, for example. Ours was at a 25, so we can make it at a 25, and then you can save it. And you want to select allow automatic export to grades so that it will automatically send it to the grade book. Okay. And then here, this is the difference between a test and like an assessment for learning quiz. On assessment for learning quizzes, I allow them an unlimited number of attempts. On a test, I'll allow them 1 attempt. Okay. And then last thing is the submission views. So the default view looks like this. It says your quiz has been successfully submitted. So you might want to write your own little message. Congratulations. Okay. And then what you want to do is you want to show the questions, and you can select from a different possibilities here. If it's a test, I usually just show the questions that were answered incorrectly and show the question answers, or perhaps not. If it's an AFL quiz, I'm going to show all the questions with user responses, and I'll definitely show them the answers. Okay. And so then once you've got that, you can save it. You can save and close. And you've got your demo test there. And if you go over to your grades tab here, I'm going to show there's the quiz that we did this morning, and then there's the demo test. Okay. And I'm going to stop there because I've already run over time, and I want to make sure that I can answer any questions. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to see if there's any questions that I can answer. Okay. I'm not clear on how to assign a pool type question. Is there a reason you have multiple choice in a separate folder, and why use subfolders? Okay, so those are both like very good, very similar questions. So basically, let me just hop back to my presentation there. Let's see here. Go. Okay, so if I go back to my quizzes here, the reason why I want to have a subfolder for my question pool is so that I can draw from a lot of different types of questions. So all of these other questions, I could create question pools for them. So I could have like 4 different true or false questions and put them all in a little folder. And then I could randomly select one of those questions. And I could do the same thing for, you know, a lot of these other types of questions. But I find that the most useful implementation of that is for multiple choice questions. So for each multiple choice question, and this is the organization that I've sort of learned about by practicing this over time, is it's really good to, like, you want to draw from similar types of questions for multiple choice questions. Otherwise, it's difficult to know what questions you're using to really assess your students. So if you can sort of like imagine that you had like a traditional paper test and you had 10 multiple choice questions. You take each of those 10 questions and you give them their own little subfolder like this. Okay, so they each get their own folder. And then for each of those questions, you would want to create 4 different questions. You know, again, it doesn't have to be 4, but I'm giving you I think a reasonable ballpark. So 4 different types of questions, or 4 different questions, all of the same type of question. So now you know, okay, I'm pulling from this pool of questions. I know that they're going to get this type of a question. So like if I was in science, I might say, I might have questions like, how many protons does this element have? And I would just have, you know, 4 different elements for the 4 different multiple choice questions. Okay. And so then once you have that pool of questions, that's when you can go into your quiz and you can create you can create a pool that randomly selects one of those questions. So again, if I go back to my quizzes here, and I did it on the demo test, so I can edit the test. I can add or edit questions. So right here, I made that multiple choice question pool, and we did that by adding a question pool. So I'll just go through that process one more time. So we add a question pool, multiple choice pool 2, and I might number it like that just so that it's clear which pool I'm using. And I'm going to select the group of questions that I want to draw from. So I don't have another pool right now, so I'll just click the same pool of questions. Okay, it says it's already been imported, but that's all right. And so then you would import those. Oh, it won't let me import them again because I've already done it. That's okay. But you would select one of those from that pool of questions, and then you would have your question pool there. Okay, so hopefully that answers the question about question pools and why you would have a subfolder for multiple choice questions. Let's see if there's other questions. If you already typed questions into a new quiz, can you move those questions into the question library, or will you have to retype them? So yes, you can. So Bridget, what you can do is you can go to the question library and you can import questions to the library. I don't have questions typed into a quiz itself, so I can't demonstrate that for you right now. But when you're in the question library, there's a little button for importing questions. Let's see here. Yeah, so I'll just show you where that button is. Okay, so here I am in the question library, and I can just select import, and I can browse existing questions, and I can find the questions that I'm looking for that way. What if a short answer? Okay, so Alina, that's the big pitfall of a fill in the blanks question. And so don't tend to use the fill in the blanks very often, but when I do, I often will include a word list for the students to make sure that I've covered my bases and I've showed them the correct spelling. Okay, so I might give them like 10 words to choose from, and then they have to select the correct one to fill in the blank with. Or I'll use it for students that are in a higher grade level where I'm confident that their spelling is going to be strong, and I'll make sure to keep the blank quite simple, because if you make it too complicated, then you're right, you're just going to have it graded incorrectly, and you're going to have to go back and update all those grades manually. From Lewis, when doing short answer, is there an option for students to record their answer? Okay, so when you are, so I did not demonstrate the short answer questions, but I can quickly look at that. Back to here. So if I want to make a short answer question, right here, okay, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? So then you have some options, okay? So you can add feedback, you can add a hint, okay? And here's the answers, okay? So you're looking for a specific text. So you can set it to grade itself, but I don't think that you'd want to. You'd probably want to set it so that you can grade it independently, but you might make it worth a certain number of points. So 1 point if it's just their flavor, and a couple of points if you're asking them to justify it. And then when they actually do the quiz, I believe there is a button where they can push to record an answer. So like, just like they would when they're doing a Dropbox submission, like you can do an audio recording as well. So there is that option, but I'd have to add the question to a quiz in order to demonstrate it. So that would take a little bit too much time just now. Okay. I think that's all the questions that I see there. Did anybody add questions to the Padlet? No? Okay. So then what I'll do is just to finish off, I think I'll just go back to my presentation that I had. Okay. So then the biggest challenge that you guys are going to have might be academic integrity, and that's why those question pools for the multiple choice are really good, and that's why the arithmetic questions that I showed you at the end are excellent, because if you give them an arithmetic question, everybody's going to have the same question but with different numbers, so they can't just cheat off each other by copying each other's answers. They have to learn how to do the question and then take that understanding and apply it to a new situation. So that addresses a lot of the academic integrity issues. It makes it a lot better than some of your other options for evaluating students when they're not in their seats in front of you. But what I often do is I'll just sign out a bunch of Chromebooks, and I'll have all the students write it like as a test in front of me, and so then there's no academic integrity issues. The other issue is it's definitely like front loaded in terms of the time commitment. It takes a while to get used to setting up these quizzes. And again, it's useful to spend some time organizing it for yourself in order for you to be able to use them in the future. Because if it's not organized, you try to copy it over to another course or something like that, it's going to be a beast of a problem. Okay. And then proofreading. So like if you make a mistake, you might not know it, and then it will grade a student's work incorrectly. You can go back and you can change it afterwards, but I have found that it's challenging to proofread effectively. And it's a little bit different than when you're giving a test and you have a little mistake and you can just let everybody know, oh, hey, like on question 13, it should have been, the acceleration should have been 9.8 meters per second squared instead of 4.9. So those are the pitfalls. Okay. And then questions. Yeah. So So that is all. Okay, so it's 8:45, so we've done our half an hour of presentation and 15 minutes of questions. So thank you very much for coming and participating this morning. I hope you learned something, and what I'll do is I'll throw my email in here. If anybody wants to get in touch with me and talk about any of this, you're welcome to send me an email. Okay. Enjoy your day, guys. It's Friday.